Deneme. Deneme. Dear participants, I hope you enjoyed your lunch. Now we will have the next workshop that will be conducted by Dr. Faizan Ali. Let me introduce him briefly. Faizan Ali is a marketing professor and graduate coordinator in the School of Hospitality and Tourism Management in Sarasota, Manatee. He began teaching here in 2016, coming from the Dedman School of Hospitality, Florida State University, where he served as a postdoctoral scholar. He is an active member of various hospitality associations. Dr. Faizan Ali earned PhD in marketing at the International Business School, University Technology Malaysia, master's degree in management from Glyndevere University, United Kingdom, and a bachelor degree in business administration and information technology from the Institute of Management Sciences, University of Peshawar, Pakistan. His research interests are in the areas of customer experience, service performance and quality, customer satisfaction and behavior, and he has authored more than 40 international refereed journal articles and conference papers. His recent research has been published in prestigious journals such as Journal of Hospitality, Leisure, Sport and Tourism Education, Journal of Destination and Management, and more. He is recipient of 4 Best Paper Awards. Please allow me to invite Dr. Ali to the stage. Dr. Ali, thank you so much.
Yeah, let's start. Sure. Thank you. Okay, thank you. All right, it's still so good to see some people here. It's the last day, I think, of the conference, and everybody is quite tired. But still, I think it's a happy thing to see some of you with happy faces here. For me personally, last day of the conference is very emotional because I make a lot of good connections, friends, and meet new people and everything. And then we see them leave one by one. So it's sort of an emotional day in the end, but with a hope that we are going to see each other again in the next other conferences, upcoming conferences, in happy mood and with some very productive research. So with that, Siddhan, thank you for introducing, though there's one correction. I have done quite a lot of research after I wrote that bio a few years ago. So my current publications, which I am not saying it as a number, but the number I'm quoting is because I use my own experience to talk at conferences about literature review or methodology and all those things. Currently, I just got an acceptance for my 82nd publication. If I add the conference papers and everything, it's well beyond 150. But again, it's not about the number, it's about the experiences along the way with all these publications and things that come with it, right? So literature review, as you all know, is a very integral part of all the papers that we write. I don't think anybody can say I've published a paper without literature review, right? So with all these papers and all these publications, it generates a lot of experience, right? So whatever I'll talk about today will mainly be my experience as an author, but also as a reviewer and as an editor. I get to evaluate many other researchers' work, read the literature review, comment on it. And then as an editor, I get to see the reviews provided by other scholars on work of younger researchers or even senior researchers. So whatever I say, it's all my experience. Just like my previous workshop, I will be happy to make it interactive. So if you have any problem, question, concern, comment, just stop me and we can have that conversation in the middle. I, for myself, when I attend these workshops, if I have a question and nobody let me ask that question, it bugs. And then I cannot concentrate on what the speaker is saying, right? So if you have a question, just, raise your hand so that we can give you a mic and then you can ask your question. Okay, with this, Siddhan, I think it's not working. So maybe I'll need your help. Yeah, all right. I don't know if I'm controlling it or you are controlling. Okay, then probably the signal is too slow from here to there and there to here. So it takes a long time. So if you can control it a little bit, it will be better. Okay. We can skip this one. Everybody already know this. It's the boring part. I don't want to talk about it. But here, I'll tell you something about how my experience with research started. It's very important. Research is an ongoing thing. Earlier, I was at a session and one of my friends commented on me saying that, wow, it's amazing that you understand what everybody is speaking. It's actually not that I understand, it's the experience that I've gained over the years, right? So that's what matters. And of course, there's a lot of young researchers. Sometimes you listen to other people and you don't understand. It's not because you are not good or you are not intelligent or something. It's just because lack of experience. So the more experience you get listening to people, the better you become at research. My experience with PhD actually my experience with research started at PhD level, not at master's level. Even though I wrote a thesis at master's, but it was really just to graduate, not to learn research. However, when I started my PhD at UTM, that's where my research actually really started, right? So next slide, please. And then while I was in Malaysia for my PhD, I joined this Facebook group called Doctorate Support Group. This one right now is the largest support group for researchers in the world. In fact, the owner, the creator of this group, Anita, she was invited by Facebook to Facebook headquarters to talk about it. How is it to manage the largest support group for researchers around the world? I think currently they have close to 100,000 members on this group. Pretty active though. I mean, you know, some groups, there's a lot of people, it's not very active, just a few people keep posting. This is very active group. What I like about it is it has a mixture of PhD students, even undergraduate students, master's students, professors, assistant professors, postdoctoral scholars from all over the world, even though it was based in Malaysia. And then if you actually join this group, you will see there's a lot of discussion about different problems that come with research. And then I am a very active member. So I started here. This got me into what type of problems people face, including problems with literature review and other things. And then moving along, Sinan, next slide, please. Okay, and then during my PhD, a lot of things happened, but I got to get in touch with a professor from Pakistan who used to be dean at that time in Taylor's University. So he offered me a position with him as a research assistant to work with him, but okay, yes. All right, so Dr. Kashif, his name is Dr. Kashif. He asked me to work with him, but not on academic projects, but on professional industry related projects related to research. So it gave me an idea about research can be much more than publishing. It can be consultancy projects or working with government agencies to come up with solutions and things like this. So all I'm telling you is about the research experiences that come along with different facets of research we conduct. Next slide, please, quick. All right, and then currently I'm working with several students from Pakistan, China, Malaysia, US, UK, New Zealand, Australia, Kazakhstan. This list, I mean, this slide is very old, so I didn't update this one, but so many students. And then amazingly, it doesn't matter where the students come from, their problems are the same, right? Because we all go through the same situation and everything. Now, I will tell you something I realized in this research, the research culture and everything, which is really amazing. But before I go into this, I have a question. Is there somebody in this room who have got a dream organization? Like, this is my dream organization. I want to work for this organization. Anyone? Yes, Saeed. Google? Perfect. So Google is your dream organization. You really want to work at Google, right? This is your, so of course you want to follow them. You want to see what type of work they are doing, what is their research, what they want and everything, right? You are at EMU. So let's assume one day you wake up and in your email, you have an email from Professor Hassan Kilic or Ali Ostaran saying that we have invited the Vice President for Human Resources or Research from Google to come to EMU and talk. Will you be excited and attend that talk or not? Yes, for sure, right? You want to do this. Okay. Now, this is supposed to happen in every field, right? Wherever people are interested, they want to go and listen to the person from there. Now, assume this VP of whatever from Google comes and he starts saying, oh my God, it's such a bad experience working at Google. I'm so sick and tired of my job. It's so difficult. I don't know what am I doing in Google, right? How would it touch you? Like, what would happen to your motivation? right? All your life you want to do something, you really want to do something, and then a person who is really doing it comes and says it's so bad, right? Okay, next slide, please, Siddhan. One more. Okay, this is a picture I got from a research support group. Okay, it's a support group, meaning it's a group that needs to support people, right? How to do research. And this is a picture I get from it, which shows PhD registration and convocation. And then one more slide, please. Here's another one. Okay, now, of course, some of you who have talked to me in the last few days, or some of you who know me, you know I've got a good sense of humor, right? So I'm not that cynical to see these things and be upset with it. I'm not. But the reality of it is, whenever younger researchers, right? I know there are some people who are in their first semester, or some people who are about to finish their masters and they want to go into PhD. When they listen to seniors and they listen to see things like this, it really creates a negative impression. It really makes it so difficult to think about research, right? You go talk to people, they tell you it's so bad. You talk to your seniors, they say, I don't know what am I doing here, right? Things like this. And then you also see people saying, you don't really want to do PhD, you are only going to go for PhD so you can live in that country, or you want a nationality so you are getting your PhD. Things like this, right? Which creates so much negativity. Now, I understand we are all in different positions, different places, and all these things. I just feel that we all need to do our part wherever we are in our career, right? I mean, most of you have talked to me in this conference, and probably, I don't know, maybe some of you might have got a negative vibe, but probably some of you might have got a positive vibe from me telling you it's a good thing, do it, right? If you really are into it, do it. Next slide, please, Siddhan. So, ultimately, what happens is with this negative situation and all this negativity that people create about research, publishing papers, doing your thesis, dissertation really becomes something like this impossible. People think it's so difficult, right? On top of it, we talk to senior academics. They are very angry. They say, no, no, it's bad. Your methods are bad. Your literature is bad. Things like this, right? Unfortunately, actually, I was talking to Carlos Flavian a couple of days ago, and he told me that they actually asked their reviewers, and probably he mentioned it yesterday also, that they asked their reviewers to be constructive. Like, you can send your paper to many people, and probably 90% of them will tell you what's wrong with your paper. But not many people will tell you how to improve that, right? So yes, maybe we know there is something wrong with the paper, but how do we improve it so we don't get that type of situation in higher education? One slide more, Siddhan, please. Ultimately, this is what happens, right? I hate research. And then people say higher education, academia, it's a difficult, it's a boring place, it's a boring job. I love my job. Actually, I tell this to people. I say, if I die 100 times and I am born again 100 times, this is exactly what I will be doing because I love it, right? So you need to bring your love into this research and you will see it's going to do a lot of wonders for you. A lot of good things are going to happen. Okay, one more slide, please. Now, what needs to be done is, Siddhan, please press maybe one or two more times. One more time. Thank you. Okay. When I started my PhD, the first day I went to my PhD supervisor, when I meet him, he told me, Faizan, if you want to succeed, I was very excited, right, about PhD, and I really wanted to do it. My supervisor told me, you need to, and I went from UK to Malaysia. So UK was a fun place. Malaysia is also fun, but it's different. So my supervisor told me, if you want to succeed, you need to start doing 3 things and you need to stop doing 3 things. So he asked me which one you want to know first. So I was like, maybe I should first stop doing things, right? Because negativity is a little bit problematic. So I thought maybe he'll tell me what to stop. And when he tell me what to do, maybe some positive, right? So he said, first of all, you need to stop socializing. Wow, okay, that is a lot, right, to ask. I'm a social person, so that's a lot. Then he said, you need to stop all type of fun from your life. And then the third one is you need to stop going to parties and birthdays and marriages and all these things. So it's a lot to take in, right, all of a sudden. And then he told me that the 3 things you need to start doing is read, read, and read. All right, that's a lot to take in the first day, right? First day meeting a PhD supervisor, but I took it to my heart, right? Saying that, okay, my supervisor says you need to read, read, and read. So I go back, I open one paper, I read, I open another paper, I read, and I open a third paper and I read, and I'm done. 3 papers, I read, read, and read. So I go to my supervisor a few days later, and he asked me, what did you read? So I give him 3 papers, and he is looking at me like if I'm an alien. So I said, well, really, this is what I read. So then he obviously was upset. So he gave me a few more papers. And I still remember to that date, he wrote a list of journals. Journal of Academy of Marketing Science, Journal of Business Research, Journal of Marketing, Journal of Management, all these top journals. And for that, up until that time, I thought my English was good. Okay, but lo and behold, I open this journal article and I read the first paragraph and I have zero clue what these people are talking about. Have you ever read a paper from like Journal of Management or Journal of Academy of Management or something? It's so difficult to understand, right? So first paragraph, I'm like, what am I reading? It's so difficult, right? So then what happens is now every paper I have to read 3 or 4 times just to understand what they are talking about. Of course, it creates a lot of problem in my head, right? So after I read 10 papers, 4 times each paper, I start getting headache. Right? It's very common. I think most of you have gone through that, right? So I go back to my supervisor and I say, this is what I read and I have a headache. So he told me something. He said, the day you graduate from PhD, your headache will finish. It will not finish before that, okay? And now that I think about it, I think it's very true, actually. And the headache doesn't come from reading too much. The headache actually comes from reviewing literature where you're looking at a lot of different perspectives. And usually when we grow up, right, our societies, most of us, we are not trained to understand different perspectives, right? We normally are trained with one perspective, everybody telling us this is right. That's it, right? But when you go into research, you start looking at different perspectives about one thing, right? Even a simple thing like customer satisfaction has 16 different definitions, right? So 16 different perspectives. So that headache actually comes from there. Now there's a way to deal with it, right? So maybe sometimes if somebody, let's say, we did a PLS session. Some people had some conceptions about PLS. They ask me, I answer, and it's a good debate. So when you have this headache and you have this confusion about research, it's a good idea to ask for help, right? But you need to ask for help from the right person. One, the second thing is you need to know what to ask for. I get emails, people asking me, give me a topic. How can I give somebody a topic, right? Somebody tried to reach out to me a few times with many emails. Professor, I want to talk. Professor, I want to talk. Okay, let's talk. And it's, can you give me a topic in marketing? I cannot give you a topic in marketing. A better way would be reaching out to a professor saying, I did my research. This is what I did. And these are 2, 3 topics I come up with. Which of these have a better potential? So then the person is willing to help you because they know you have done your homework and they can guide you with each of those topics rather than asking somebody for a topic. I mean, if I have topics, why won't I work on them myself? Right? So it's very important to know asking help is okay, but how do we ask for help? Okay, and I know some of you might be thinking, why are we not talking about literature review, right? So we are going to go into literature review just after probably 3 or 4 more slides. I just wanted to make this background a little bit so we understand why we are talking about all this. One more slide, please, Sinan. Okay, so let's start with this. Don't bring my definition on the screen, but let me ask all of you, what is research for you guys? Fulia, right? Yeah, Fulia, what is research for you? It's a passion, okay. Anybody else? Cesar? Trying to answer your question. Ask questions. Anyone? Anybody else? No? Patience. What else? Yes? Challenging questions? What? Enjoy, challenge, questions, answers, how to answer, how to find question, all these things, right? To me, research is something very interesting. One more slide, please. I feel research is really poking and prying. Do you know what is poking? Poke. Yeah, poke, right? Poking, prying. This is what research is all about. How many of you like a cat? Cat. Okay. A baby cat or a big cat? All cats. Which cat is more interesting? A small kitten? Kittens, right? Why? They're cute, they're running around, they do a lot of things, right? But the bigger the cat becomes, the boring the cat becomes. They sit in one side, sleep, you go, they go to another place and sleep. Your cat is not like this. Maybe we need to study it. So special things with your cat, right? Generally, the reason why I mentioned cat is because cats have a lot of curiosity, right? And I tell my students, if you want to be good at research, you need to be like a kitten. You need to be very curious, right? I mean, those of you who have had cats at home, I have a cat at home. And sometimes it's very amazing. Anything new happens, my cat becomes curious. Like, what is it? Every time I travel, I go back, my cat is the first one to smell my luggage. Like, what is this bag doing here? Where did it come from, right? Starts doing things like this. Now, why I call research as poking and prying is, just imagine for a moment that if you are going in bus, you are traveling in a bus, you are sitting, and then let's say I am sitting in the bus, and for some reason, I go and I look at Sanaz sitting in the bus. For no reason, I go and poke Sanaz, right? What are you gonna do? If I go and poke you just like this, you are sitting in a bus, I'm sitting in a bus, I come and poke you like this, what will you do? Yeah, you don't know me. You'll be surprised, right? Probably surprised. You have questions, but you don't say something, you are surprised. After 2 minutes, I go and poke you again. Any problem? Yeah, so. Yeah, generally it's what happens. Second time you are a bit upset, but probably you, yes, what's going on? Yes, some problem. Exactly. The third time I have no finger, right? No finger. So what happens is now at the third time you can come up with a theory of Sanaz. And the theory of Sanaz says if you poke a lady in a bus 3 times without a reason, you lose your finger. Right? This is exactly how we do research, right? You need to find the problem, you need to poke it. I mean, if there's a phenomena, I mean, most of us look, how do we come up with research? We have a phenomena around us, right? Sometimes we just ignore it. But if you look at something and you start poking it, right? Start poking it, then you come up with interesting questions to find answers to, right? This is how research starts. But to be able to do it, you need to poke it, right? And poking comes from curiosity. Now, I can never create a theory of Sanaz if I poke you first, and then after 10 minutes, I go and poke Cesar. Then after 20 minutes, I go and poke Professor Aisha, right? Then it doesn't make any sense because there's no trend, right? So we are not poking in a formalized way, which I said earlier in my definition. It's poking and prying in a formalized curiosity. So you have to formalize your curiosity. Now, sometimes I talk to younger researchers and it's surprising to me that they want to work on everything. Okay, so currently Professor Aisha knows I'm working on a big project where we want to bring researchers from multiple continents, put them into teams so that they can work on some emerging topics in hospitality and tourism. And you filled in an application and we got 263 applications for that one. But what surprised me is that around 80 of those applicants have ticked all the 9 topics. And the topics that we have given are very different from each other: destination competitiveness, crisis communication, social media marketing, digital analytics. All of them are very different, but some people take all of them. Like, I want to work on all of them. So you have to be really, really formalized, right? You need to know what you are doing, and then it becomes better. Okay. One more slide, please, so we can go into the literature. Okay, this slide, I think in the morning, Dr. Jihan also used, but I want to start here as well, that for a good research, you need to start with a good research topic, right? So any good research would start with a good research topic. Now, a good research topic normally would come from where? One more slide, please, if you can just. A good research topic comes from a good knowledge of literature. right? Unless you don't know the literature, you cannot say my topic is good. Now, sometimes I see that some young researchers are very excited to talk about their topic, right? They say, oh my God, my topic is going to change the world because I have done such an amazing thing. But when I listen to it, I feel that just this morning, I read 10 papers about the same topic, right? Now, obviously, the student who is telling me in that student's opinion, this topic is a breakthrough topic, new. But why it happens is because the student doesn't have an idea of the literature. So if the student just works a bit harder to understand what's done in the literature, they would never claim that my research is a breakthrough research because there's so much more done on it, right? So we need to work on the literature review in order to come up with a good research topic. And where does the literature come from? So this, in my opinion, is the biggest problem for most of the criticism that happens on social science research. Have you heard of this criticism? Who reads your paper? You write so many papers, who read them? Yes? Have you heard of it? Industry never engages with our research, right? Some people say you do not solve any problem. What are you studying? Yes, these are the criticisms people make on our research. Saeed, when I was in EMU 2 weeks ago, I remember he asked me, Professor, I want to ask you a challenging question. I asked him, yes, please ask. And then he said, what is the worth of our research? It's not like a medical science. It's not like hard science. We are doing just social science. Why? What's the point? You asked me, remember you asked me this question? The reason is because our source of literature is very limited. You know, most of the times when you go and meet your supervisors, they ask you go and read research papers. Yes, most of our ideas come from research papers, and that is the reason why most people are not interested in what we do, because by the time we publish papers, they are way outdated. Nobody cares. Like everybody already know what you are saying, right? Like this morning, my friend from India, he was presenting a very good research, and I'm sure you used a lot of time, a lot of effort on that. You are telling me that people are going to use apps if they think the app is easy to use. But the industry already knows it. So yes, your research can be very good for other PhD students who want to use your reference to support their hypothesis. But do you think somebody who developed apps would be interested to know this? No, because they know it, right? So now it's not your fault. The problem is you read a research paper that said to study this. Okay, and I'll give you an example. I got one paper accepted just 3 days ago, right? Now I know that even though it's accepted 3 days ago, in that paper, it will be cited as Ali et al. 2022, right? So if you cite my paper, and if you use my paper to justify your study, it's the latest paper, 3 days ago, Ali 2022, right? You cannot go later than that, it's the latest. But this paper took a year to publish, which means that I submitted that paper in start of 2021. Yes, I took a year to write that paper, which means that I started writing about that idea in 2020. And 6 months before that, I collected data. So the phenomena that I'm studying is almost 3 years old. Now you pick up the idea from 2022 and you start working on it, but you are also going to use 1 year to write the paper, 6 months to collect the data, and then go through revision and everything. So by the time you really go to publish, it's 6 years old. Who cares about 6-year-old ideas? Like, do you care? No, right? So this is very important to understand that most of the criticism comes from because our literature knowledge comes from outdated sources. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't read research papers. It's very important we read research papers. But to create good, engaging research, we need to go beyond it, like include it, but go beyond it as well. And how can we do that? Can we go to one more slide, please, Siddhan? All right, so these things Dr. Jan talked, right, in the morning. Yes, some of you heard it, but I'll give you real examples of my papers that come out of additional sources and not just articles that were published. One more slide, please. Oh, what happened? Okay, can you go, yeah, just bring everything on the slide, Siddhan, please. So usually, when we go to this literature review, research articles, books, magazines, podcasts, news articles, interviews, and all these things, we need to know two things, okay? One is we need to find the research problem, and that is actually a question that you said we need a question, and then you need, she said answer, and you said question, right? So you need a question, and then you need an answer for it. So that is what research problem is. There should be a problem that we want to solve. Now, Burju here, I saw her presentation. She presented wonderful idea because the methodology was very good, right? And then my question to Burju was, okay, your methodology is very good, really, really good. But what is the problem? Okay. Now you imagine I am completely healthy. I'm very fit, no problem, completely fine. And then Burju says that, no, professor, you know what? Let me bring a ultrasound machine for you. Oh, you bring ultrasound machine for me. You can even ultrasound me. But why? There's no need, right? Because I'm not having any problem. Now, if there's a pregnant lady here and the pregnant lady wants to see how the baby is growing, yes, you bring the ultrasound machine because there's a problem. You use that machine to solve the problem. So methodologies won't mean anything until we really have a problem at hand. So once the problem is there, we can do it. Now, sometimes big problems can be solved with small solutions, small methodologies, simple descriptive statistics. How many of you know United Nations World Travel Organization, UNWTO? Most of you, right? WTTC, all these big companies that produce statistics and everything. We all use them in our research, yes? To justify our issues and everything. Do you know what statistics they use in their reports? Simple frequencies and mean and median and average. That's it. Nobody uses SEM, thematic analysis, MEX, QDA, this, that, all these things. Nobody, right? And they are read by millions of people. Why industry engage with those reports but not with our papers? It's because the topics are relevant. They use simple statistics, but really push out research much quicker, right? So our focus should really be on the problem. Right now, most of us are focusing a lot on the methodology, not really on the problem. So that needs to come from a variety of sources, not just research articles, but a variety of sources that I just talked about. One more slide, please. Okay, now where can you bring these ideas from? This is very important. Now, interestingly, this conference is really very surprising to me, this MTCon. It's free to attend. Is that right, Siddhan? Free to attend, right? Everybody can free attend. Very amazing. The lineup of speakers, I honestly am telling you, I've attended more than 60 conferences in my career. I've never seen such a powerful lineup of speakers. Honest, I mean, you guys also go to conferences, you can think about it. I mean, I've listened to every single speaker in this conference, but at different conferences, not in one conference. It's difficult. But I'm surprised to see that not many people listen. Surprising, right? We say ideas. How many of you listened to what Professor Carlos Flavian spoke yesterday? To me, it was eye-opening. Now, the funny thing is my research is about AR and VR. Most of the stuff that Professor said, I've used it. Most of the technologies he talked about, I've used them personally. I've actually operated on a injured man using haptic gloves, VR and everything. I become a surgeon. But still, I listened to him and I had more than 20 ideas written down. Ideas come from these type of things. This is breakthrough. Now, if he wants to publish this, it's going to take a year to publish these ideas which he talked about yesterday. And then you read it after 2 years. So why not attend these conferences, listen to people and work on this idea 2 years before it's published? Yes? So ideas, in my opinion, you should bring them from workshops, seminars, conferences, brainstorming. Burju, I just talked about her. Yesterday, she came to me and she said, Professor, after you commented on my work, I was very upset. And I was like, oh my God, she was upset with me. She said, no, I was upset with myself. Why I didn't think about it. So I said, well, now you can think about it. It's not late, right? You can still think about it. And then I stood outside with her around 40 minutes. And first I asked her, tell me about your method, because I don't know. I am not an expert in topsis, right? She told me about her topic. 40 minutes we brainstorm. She has a whole plan on working for multiple things now. Brainstorming, right? Several of you. Last night I walked with Jani for some time. She told me about what she wants to work on. Just some ideas, some suggestions, things like this. Brainstorming, talk to people from other areas. Sanaz and I talk about something. She is expert in one thing, I'm in another. We talk. Brainstorming, it generates more ideas. Saeed today presented, same thing, right? Brainstorming means you talk to people. Now my sister here, she is funny. I want her to talk to somebody about her research. She says, how about somebody take my idea? It's a possible threat. Yes, you can talk to people. Somebody can steal your idea. It's possible. Sanaz and I had this experience. But it doesn't mean you should keep it inside, right? Still talk, maybe be a bit smart. Don't tell people my objective is like this, this. Go with a broader area, right? Just talk about this is my area, what can I do? So brainstorming, social issues, the third one, very important, right? Talk about social issues, but don't just mention social issues. When I was coming here on my flight, I reviewed 2 papers. Both the papers had the same problem. They mentioned COVID-19 in the paper. Now, this is not a problem. I mean, of course, COVID-19 is a big problem right now, but the only time they mention COVID-19 is the first sentence of the paper. Due to COVID-19, blah, blah, there's no more COVID-19 in the paper. So it doesn't make any sense, right? So if you want to focus on COVID-19, then really relate it to COVID-19. Talk about COVID-19 throughout the paper, right? Talk about the introduction, why COVID-19 has changed things, what happened. Talk in your implications. How can you change things post-COVID-19? That's what makes it interesting. So social issues, yes, we can all talk about them, but it's important that we relate them to things, right? Today, Professor Levin, Saeed, they presented a very, very good paper about Silk Route, right? International relations, politics, power, really a social issue. I see some papers talk about, actually on my computer right now, there's a paper I need to review about food waste. Big problem, right? Social issues, hunger. I just got a paper accepted with Professor Levin, Gurel, and Zed about refugees, how people see them when they go to other countries, right? Social issues also gives you a lot of ideas. Then existing literature, we all know, I mean, we all use existing literature for ideas. Current and future trends. Yesterday we talked with Professor Jihan and Carlos when they were presenting how we can use future trends. But very important things are your own experiences. How many of you work on consumer behavior? Consumer behavior, you work, okay. Who in this room thinks he is the most experienced consumer in the world? No? We all are very experienced consumers. I have a son, 6 years old. He likes to eat burger. If I give him a hot dog, he doesn't eat it. So a 6-year-old boy is a consumer who knows what to consume, why, his preferences, his needs, his wants, and everything. All of us are, right? Consumers. So when you are doing some research on consumer behavior, why don't you think about your own experience? Every time I write a research paper, every time, okay, what I do is I think about myself. If this happens to me, would it lead to this? Would it lead to this? Would it lead to this? That's how my models make sense to me, right? Today, Saeed was presenting something about unethical leadership and narcissist leadership and job embeddedness and everything, right? So you make a model. How many times you put yourself in that leader's shoes? Like, what happens if I am a leader like this? Yes, what happens if my leader is like this? What am I gonna think? So that's how you can create your own models based on your experiences. One more slide, please, Saeed. Siddhan. Okay, so now when all these ideas and everything comes, now what do we do with literature review? Since the workshop is about literature review, literature review actually has 3 main roles in your paper, right? Where can you use them? So the first one is topic. Right, so you want to come with your topic. Okay, what do we do with our topic in regards to literature review? Now, please don't take it wrong. When you write a paper, your paper section number 2 is literature review, right? Review of literature, section number 2. When you're writing a dissertation or a thesis, chapter 2 generally is literature review. But how about the citations in methodology or introduction or conclusion? You also cite papers there, right? What is that? Isn't that a literature review as well? Yes? So you actually have to review literature for all your work. Just in chapter 2, the role of literature review is a bit different, right? The first place where the role of literature starts is your topic. And what does a topic mean? You read a little bit to identify which area you are interested in. Sanaz, you work on crisis communication. Actually, you don't work on crisis communication. You work on airline and airport management, right? But during COVID-19, you thought about crisis management from the literature. Now, the literature was not theoretical literature. You looked at news and Instagram stories and Instagram posts, which I said, right? That's also a source of literature. You see this, you connect it to your area and you, can I study this? This is normally how we do things, right? So the topic, the general topic, I'm not saying the whole topic, like what exactly is the title of your research, but the broader area. Jani, your research is regional tourism product development. Yes, development of regional tourism products. Yes, this is a broad area, right? This is where what we do with literature review first. Which area should I cover? Because we read a lot of things, right? Now, most of you think about your PhD journey. Your inspiration comes from your master's. So in your master's, you're studying a lot of things, then you decide maybe I want to go for PhD, right? So in your master's, you take a lot of different courses. Those of you who have studied business or management, you study strategic management, you study marketing, you study finance, you study human resource management and all these different things. During that time, you need to identify, am I interested in this or not? Because for different assignments and things, you read papers, you read other people's work, you read newspapers, articles, case studies, and all these things. So you need to identify, am I interested in this or not? So that's the first role of literature review, to identify your topic, the broader area. Then we go about that topic deeper, right? So the second role of literature becomes, is this topic worth studying? Right? This is the first question we need to ask ourselves. Is it really worth studying? What is the scope of it? And can this be studied? Now, yesterday, Professor Aisha, myself, Guzde, a few other people were sitting outside, and I don't remember who, but one professor actually commented and said, do you think space tourism is a good topic to study? Remember, right? My answer was, yes, it can be, but I won't work on it. Why would I not work on it? Because I don't think we are going that route. I don't think in the next 20 years, the cost of space tourism will be reduced to an extent where many people are going to travel. I think it's a very, very limited niche area. Not many people are going to study that paper. So even if I publish it, how many people are going to read it? Because publishing is not the only thing. After publishing, you need to see what impact are you making with those papers, right? So think about your topic. Is it worth studying? How many people are working on it? How many people are studying, citing it, and all those things? Then the second one is scope. Scope also comes from literature. In how many different type of journals it's published. So yesterday, Professor, you asked Dr. Jehan that many people in tourism are publishing related to technology, but they are not tourism and hospitality scholars. They are from other areas, which means that the tourism scope is increasing, or the technology in travel and tourism scope is increasing because other people are also coming into this domain. But some areas are very limited in scope. So meaning not many people will study them. You can see this in disciplines also. Who are the most cited researchers in the world? If you look at them, most of them come from medical sciences because more and more people cite them. And it's a bigger community, right? Which studies are cited the least? Historical studies, historians. If you look at any professor in history department, if they have 1,000 citations, they celebrate, right? And so this is how we do. In statistics, the citations are normally higher because every field they cite statistical papers, right? You look at here et al, we all cite, right? Or Ringel or Marco and all these people. So we need to think about the scope of the study through literature review. And then the third one is get insight into the topic. So at this stage, you need to really go deeper into that broad area. Which topic should I now study? Because by now, you know that, is it worth studying? Is it enough scope for me to work on? And can I study it? So by this time, you should have sort of a working title through literature review, right? Okay, let's go next slide, please. Now, I will give you an example of how I use my own experience to come up with research topics, okay? So you see these two photos on that side? Yes? Okay, do you know what's happening in the first photo? So before COVID-19, I was supposed to go to Taiwan to interview some students. Very tired. I had to stop in Boston. Somebody. So I was flying with Cathay Pacific, so I stopped in Boston airport and very late in the night. So I went to the lounge area to sit, and suddenly something is moving on the floor. So first I thought I'm very sleepy or something, right? Because late in the night, but this movement is too much. So I see, and it's a bunch of mouse, 5 or 6 mice running around in the lounge, yes. So I took a photo, but because at that time the cameras were not so good, and I was also in a hurry, right? Because these mice were running very fast. So I took that photo. So one you can see a bit clearly, the other one is fast, very fast. So it's a bit difficult to catch that picture. But anyways, I take this photo. Then later in that flight, normally I order special meal, right? In the flight, I don't eat all the stuff. So normally when I travel with international airlines, I say I don't eat pork or anything like that. So, you know, when you travel and you order special meal, they first serve you, right? That before they give everybody, they first give you the special meal. So my meal come to me, and you see it shows Muslim meal. And then what's very interesting is I see at my food, and if you look at this one, the bread, it has a bite mark, right? It has a bite mark, and just like this. So I look at it, and by this time I don't even remember the mouse. Okay, I'm tired. So mouse, I took a photo, I forgot. Then I see this one, and I asked the lady who was serving, I was like, what is this? And then she goes, okay, she pick it up just like this, no glove, nothing. She pick it up like this, she put another one with another bare hand. And we are all in hospitality, food and beverage, you know, you never do that, right? So I didn't eat this food. I went to Taiwan, interviews done, everything done. I come back, I completely forgot this incident. I don't even remember it, right? Because there's so much more stuff to do. So one day I'm just looking at my phone because the memory is full, so I need to delete some photos and videos. So I come across these photos. Now when I see them, my researcher wake up, right? So I see these photos, I'm like, wow, this is interesting. So what happened was when this incident happened, that lady changed the bread, I actually had an argument with her. Normally I'm a cool person, I don't get angry very easily, right? But that time I was upset, right? Like, what is this? I was hungry as well, the food, you know, all this stuff. So when I look at this photo, I thought about it. I was like, how can something make a person like me angry? Because normally I don't get angry very easily, right? So maybe what is that limit where a consumer really go and misbehave or, you know, show dissatisfaction or something? So then I thought, okay, let me see literature if there's something about it. So I go into literature, right? So you see the progression, my own experience, I think about it, poking, trying with purpose and all these things. Go to the literature, I try to find out, and I could hardly find out anything. So the literature normally said that satisfaction is there. And if you score low on satisfaction, that is dissatisfaction, which is not true because you can be less satisfied, but it doesn't mean you are dissatisfied, right? And most of the consumer behavior literature also focuses on consumer behavior, no misbehavior or something like this. So that was the idea. And then during those times, I met a couple of my other friends from Iran, Hussein and Babak. Babak at that time was traveling to Orlando, so I met him. He said he wants to work on, you know, airline, airport, and then I gave him this idea. So he said, let's work on this one. So this paper was then published in Journal of Travel Research. Just exactly that. You can see understanding airport service scape on traveler dissatisfaction and misbehavior. This is how this paper came. Now, I'm not saying that just because of the idea the paper was published, but the generation of idea came from there. One more slide, please, Siddhan. Okay, this is another example of how you can use multiple sources of literature to come up with good ideas. So I have a student, Luana. She is from Romania. Dr. Jehan brought her to University of South Florida to study for master's. She asked me to be her supervisor for her master's thesis, but she couldn't figure out a topic. Right? What topic should I study? What topic should I study? So we talked about a few things, nothing was clicking. And normally the way I work with my students, I don't push them with ideas. I don't tell them you work on this, you work on this. I usually work with them. So whatever they want to do, I help them to do that thing. So one day I woke up, got ready, I left for my office, and you see the picture is actually a portrait picture. So I got an email from this magazine, Hotel Management, which I'm subscribed to. So every week, whenever they publish the new issue, I get that email, right? So I opened this email, and this email was talking about public spaces promote wellness for guests and customers, which was how hotels are using the public area, the communal areas, to promote wellness and well-being and happiness in their employees and customers. So I look at this and I thought it was very interesting. Like the idea itself was very interesting. During my PhD, I studied physical environment of hotels, right? So until that time, I know not many people are actually studying communal areas and how it can increase well-being and life satisfaction and everything. So I called Luana, I met her, I told her maybe this is a good idea. And then she did her thesis on this one. One more slide, please, Siddhan. And then this paper was published in IJHM, very simple model. I mean, if you look at this model in the paper, you can go and check this paper out. Just three variables: satisfaction, emotions, and well-being. That's it. Right, so not a lot of things, but we actually did an experimental study. We went to take photos of real lobbies, Photoshop them to make some changes, and then ask people to give their responses. So again, the idea come from a newspaper magazine, a new idea, right? Okay, well, further, one more slide, please. Now, usually what I do is, the way I work is if I see something interesting in a paper article or my own experience or whatever, what I would do is I would think about two things. One more slide, please, Siddhan, or maybe two, just bring everything here. So usually what I would think is, okay, this concept, how does it implicate for customers? So what can customers get out of it? Or how can it create some sort of value or implication for employees? These two ways, right? Because we are all business management students. So in business, either is the service provider or service consumer, that's we study. So my first line of thinking is how it can change consumers or employees. Usually I go with consumers because that's my area, consumer behavior, but I sometimes work with employees as well. And this is how I proceed with it. And I'll show you a whole logic of using literature and everything to come up an idea and how I can create a problem statement. One more slide, please, Siddhan. Just bring everything here, please. Okay, so here you can see something like this. What I would suggest you is pick up a topic, okay, pick up a concept that you really are interested in. For example, in your case, crisis communication, right? Crisis communication is an area. Tourism product development is another area, right, that you can pick up, or whatever. You don't want to tell your topic because somebody will steal it. Okay. All right, or mobile app usability, or in your case, any idea that you want to work on, right? So you pick it up, something that you are very interested in, and think about it as an antecedent to something that you are not sure about. Okay, so let's say crisis communication. Companies want to communicate during crisis, how they communicate, but what happens after that communication, right? Does it create trust? Is it going to make consumers happy? Right? Is it going to bring more revenue from marketing? Are people going to book more, right? So you use it as an antecedent to something, start questioning it. This is where poking comes into picture. If it doesn't make an antecedent, let's say maybe your idea of literature is employee satisfaction, which Nemo told me yesterday, his area is employee satisfaction, right? Hello, Dr. Jan. Good, good. Today we will go, Dr. Jan. Today you will take me, Kofta? Okay. 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 So you said employee satisfaction. So maybe you are with a topic that doesn't become an antecedent to something. Maybe you think satisfaction is already a consequence. It doesn't become antecedent, right? So then you think of it as a consequence of something that you are not sure about. So in your case, employee satisfaction. So let's talk about what leads to employee satisfaction, right? What type of things can lead to employee satisfaction? Or in Jani's case, what type of things can we do to develop the tourism product, right? So that's the consequences, but what can we do to reach there? So that's how you do it. Now, here is an example. Hotel websites, right? Hotel booking websites, different websites that we use to book hotels. Do you all use hotel booking websites to book hotels, right? You go to some website like booking.com or something where you book the hotels. Now, what about them? Okay, what can we do with hotels? So if it's a concept, what can I do with it? Like, what do we do with hotel booking websites? So one concept of it is pictures. How many of you go and see the pictures of hotel on the website? Pretty much all of you, right? All the places, everybody. Okay, so if we look at hotel booking websites and we want to see the pictures, Siddhan, please, next slide. Back, more. Yes, thank you. Okay, so these are photos from our very good friends in UCF, Orlando, Professor Fevzi. They have a partner hotel called Shingle Creek, right? So these pictures are from Shingle Creek Hotel. If you look at these two photos, there's a difference in them. Do you see the difference? Yes. Which one of you prefer picture number one? How many of you prefer picture number one? Both of you? Okay. Who prefers picture number two? Okay. Now let me ask you, why do you prefer picture number one? So you want to stay in a completely alone hotel? Okay. Yeah. It's like fake. Oh, you don't say. Okay. Yes. Sanaz, why you prefer picture number one? You don't want to see that. Oh. Okay. Who prefers picture number two? Yeah. Why? Why goes there? Fake. Okay. Exactly. So you see something new. Now this is the difference, right? You see just a simple thing. One picture, another picture, one picture, people looking. Just in this crowd, you see you have two segments. Photographer one, for different reasons. Just simple thing you can do research on what motivates people in pictures, right? This is practical thing. Hotels use pictures. So you do your research to tell people what type of pictures they should use. Right? It's important. Now, can we move further, Siddhan? I will take 32 minutes. Okay, you are slow in moving the slides. Okay, thank you. Just bring all the questions here, please. All right. Okay, one back. Okay, thank you. So now, even just those two pictures, we can come up with so many questions with it. Like, okay, what's the benefit of pictures? First of all, what motivates people to see pictures? Why do they use it to book, right? So we know services are intangible. People cannot go directly to hotel. You cannot also go to hotel, ask them to let you stay for 1 hour. If you like it, you are going to stay. If you don't like it, you can leave. We don't do that, right? Then what happens if instead of photos we use videos? Would it change anything, right? So that's another question. How about if we use 360-degree images instead of videos and photos, right? So these are all questions just from a simple thing you can come up with. How about if there was a dog with those two people in the swimming pool, or a cat? What would you do then? Would you still prefer to see people and animals in the swimming pool and you go there? Right? These type of questions you ask yourself, and then you continue with that type of research. Now, one slide further, please. If you look at this paper, this is published by a few of my good friends from UCF. Very simple model. Look at the model. There's nothing special. Okay. What they are doing is those two photos I showed you are from this study. Okay. Very simple. Look at the dependent variables, booking intention, willingness to pay. It's studied like a million times. Everybody know. Look at the independent variable, size of the photo, presence of human image. Like you said, it's human, right? Are they humans or not? And then a multiplication of them, which means there were scenarios. So this is a simple study, but it has practical implications, very practical, right? Because hotels can use the findings from this study. So think about your research in this type of situation. How can you make your research much easier? One thing very interesting is that I wrote some papers in 2013, 14, 15 during my PhD times, and I still get emails from students saying that the way you write is very easy to understand. Like it's very easy to read your papers and understand what you are saying. It's because I normally think about things like this. With me, what happens if I am there, right? Because I want to say my story in that paper. One more slide, please, Siddhan. Now, this is an example of, okay, just here, Siddhan, please, thank you. This is an example of my PhD thesis, okay, that type of situation. So those of you who work with marketing, consumer behavior, you know that customer satisfaction leads to customer loyalty, right? We all know if you are satisfied, you are loyal, right? It's a universal truth. We all know. Now, I know that satisfaction leads to loyalty. I know this. But there was a paper published in Harvard Business Review. Now, Harvard Business Review is a top journal, right? They publish a lot of papers. And what Harvard Business Review says is customer satisfaction is not enough for loyalty. Now, it's an interesting thing, right? All my life, I read that satisfaction leads to loyalty. Now, Harvard Business Review says that satisfaction is not the only thing that leads to loyalty. So obviously, my logical question would be, Siddhan, please, the slide. My question would be that if satisfaction is not the only thing that leads to loyalty, then what is it that leads to loyalty? This is the most logical progression, right? If satisfaction is not leading to loyalty, what leads to loyalty? So at that time, I have got my research problem. My research problem is, okay, what leads to loyalty? In a particular situation, right, which is resort hotels, that's what my research was. It's a luxury consumption product. Okay, so my problem is with me. How do I proceed now? So I go to literature. What is literature saying about it? So I find a literature review paper. Siddhan, one slide, please. This is a literature review paper done by a few of our good friends, Ting Ting Zhang and Anil, who also Dr. Jehan's student. This paper says customer loyalty, a review of future research directions with a focus on hospitality and tourism. So I really get a paper that gives me future research directions about loyalty, right? So I go further in this paper. One more slide, please, Siddhan. And I get a series of 20 different ideas to work on. And what are these 20 ideas? How about engagement's impact on loyalty? How about customer to customer interactions impact on loyalty? What about customer commitment? What about all these different things? So I really get something from this review paper to connect it to my research problem and then come up with a good solution to it in my research paper. So you see, connecting several sources to come up with a problem and a solution. Make sense? Right? Okay, one more slide. Now, what do we do with the research topic? Just one more slide. Let's go a bit quicker. One more. One more. More. This one. So if you look at this one, it's called the tree analogy for a research. And what it shows is very simple. So if you look at the roots of the tree, this is your research problem, and that's your data quality and robustness of analysis, right? So because the research is a whole process. Now, if you don't have a problem, or if your data quality or robustness of analysis is not there, your entire research is dead, right? So roots are important. And then if you look at your research outcomes and contributions, that's the fruit. Literature review is the leaves which bring beauty into your work, right? Which makes sense, brings sense to your work. But the most important thing is the trunk. And if you look at the trunk, that shows your theoretical framework and underpinning theories, which is an integral part of our literature review. So you need to use your literature review to come up with all these theories and theoretical underpinnings and all this stuff to connect your research problem to your research outcomes. This is normally what you need to do. Now, this earlier in the sessions, Professor Levent was there. He made comment on probably 3 out of 5 presentations. The same thing. You need to connect it to a conceptual framework. You need to connect your work to theoretical framework. Is that right? You make those comments on people. Very important. Say I'm an editor. As an editor, I want to see how you connect your problem, your solution through the conceptual linkage. So one more slide further, Siddhan. Okay, so normally when you conduct a literature review, there's a series of steps, right? So this is what I do, and I would suggest if you want, you can follow this. It makes things very easy, put them very easy into perspective. First, I identify keywords. Whatever topic I'm working on, I need to identify keywords. And you may have seen that when you look at research papers, if there is 6, 7 variables into the model, each variable has some literature into the paper, right? So you identify keywords and then you search databases. Very important. You go to databases and search them. Normally, I shortlist the stuff into databases, and how I do it is, let's say if I'm working on consumer services, right? Or let's say I work on service sabotage as a topic. So I can go to Scopus or I can go to Web of Science as a whole database, right? And I can search things in it. Now, sometimes you're going to get a few thousand results. Not possible to read all of them. So then my suggestion would be go to the filters and go to only service journals and see what they are talking, because they are the leading source. Now, you may find some papers done in some other areas, but first you need to find the leading source, what exactly service journals are saying. And then you can look into other things, right? But first go there. So identify keywords, search the databases, and then identify which papers, which things, or which reports you are going to pick up. I usually pick up 40 to 50 for initial review, right? Top ones, 40 to 50. From there, I collect the ones that are very central to my work. Of course, I cannot read all of them because a lot of them are useless. So I pick up the ones that are really central to my work. Then I design a literature map. After this, I go to summaries of articles and write a literature review, which I'll show you how to do it. But Professor Levent, I have a question for you. You have a book about research methods, right? It's called Planning Research in Hospitality and Tourism. That's the name, right? I would highly recommend each of you to look into that book. Okay, because in the next few slides, I will show you some strategies that I picked up from that book. It's a very good book, and I think Professor Levent was kind enough to send me a free copy of that book to look into. So I
please,
wanted...
Doctor, can you repeat the name of the book, please?
Okay, one more slide, please, Siddhan. Oh, I'll send it in chat to Siddhan very soon. Then she can put it into chat. But I think it's called Planning Research and Hospitality and Tourism. I think that's what it is. So some strategies that you can use with your literature review, and these strategies can also make your literature review a bit more interesting, right? Because usually people don't do this. One thing I use is mind map. Okay, very important to you. So what in mind map, what you do is you put your main topic into the middle, right? And then you extend it to related topics. Usually you can do it with literature review. And this is the literature review in the start of your topic, where you are finding the scope of research, where you are finding, is it worth studying? What directions can I go into and stuff like this. As an example here, you see branding is in the middle. When we look at branding, what type of things we can think of? Promotion, right? Because branding is about promotion. I can also think about visual aspects of branding, because branding is all about visual aspects. I can think about how it influences customers, products, what is the value, how about the branding strategy, what about the neuropsychology, people's brain, with how it works with regards to branding. So we can keep going on and on and on, and it gives us a lot of further directions into which area I can pick up for my research. One more slide, please, Siddhan. Back, yes. This is another example of mind map. Okay, so let's say if you want to work on vegetarianism, right? think about it. Don't go to any papers or anything, just the topic you are interested in. Like Nemo told me, employee satisfaction. Put employee satisfaction in the middle and think about it. What are the 4 or 5 things you can think of related to it, right? So in this case, vegetarianism, sometimes when you tell somebody I'm a vegetarian, the first question they ask you is why? Right? Why are you a vegetarian, right? What is the benefit? So you see economic, environmental benefits, health benefits, moral reasons, maybe some history of it. How do you define vegetarianism, right? Things like this. So think about 4, 5, 6 different areas around it, but don't read anything as of now, right? Do it based on your own knowledge, like, because if you pick up a topic you are interested in, then of course you know something about it. Then you go further. Okay, so in the end, you have something like this. Now, when you have something like this, there's 4 questions you need to answer. Siddhan, one more slide. Question number 1 is there a particular area in this concept map that you like? Because there's several things, right? Is there a particular area you like? Health and health benefits of vegetarianism, religious aspects to vegetarianism, growth of it based on historical perspectives, right? Any area that you really like. And the other one is, think about it. The map that you made is entirely based on your existing knowledge about the topic. You haven't read anything yet, right? Now you go and read those papers you downloaded, right? You read them, and after reading them, you go back to your mind map and fill some of the gaps. Some of the gaps, maybe you add some more things to it. And then now think about some aspects of the mind map that you are really interested in, because now you are adding literature review to whatever you knew. So you have some new perspectives there. Once it's done, then you think about, can you really do this research? Can you really access this stuff and all these things? Earlier, Professor Levent and Said presented their paper, right, about international politics and everything around Silk Route. But very soon, Professor Levent said it's not an empirical paper. It's a conceptual paper we want to identify, because if it was an empirical paper, it's very difficult to make it work. You are working with 65 countries. How are you able to go and interview and do all these different type of things into one paper? You can make it a research stream for the next 3 years, 5 years. You can pick up different areas, but in one paper, it cannot be done, right? So think about it. What type of resources do you need to do this type of research and stuff like that? One more slide, Siddhan, please. Okay, can you go one more slide? So, like I said, normally what you would do is start with a broad synthesis of the literature, go into encyclopedias if you are completely new to the topic. If not, go to journal articles first, because that's the highest preference. See what journal articles are talking about. After that, consider books, maybe conference proceedings and things like this. You can also go into dissertations of other students, and in the end, you can go to websites. But this is, we are talking about literature review now, right? The chapter of literature review. So we sometimes see people submitting papers to journals, and there's a lot of website links in the literature review, part 2 of it, which sometimes doesn't work very well, right? Because websites are personal opinions. So usually avoid that. Talk about peer review stuff. One more slide, please, Siddhan. Okay, now this is something we call as smart searching, very important to consider, okay? How it works is, the first one, Siddhan, can you click a few more times, just let it fill up. Okay, one back, yes, thank you. So usually what you can do is, and I'll share the slides with you so you can go to this link and download this template. So usually what you can do is first write your area that you are interested in. So in this case, it was customer experience. Then go to your specific research question, which in my case was, what are dimensions of customer experience in theme parks, right? Now in that research question, I pick up some keywords. In my case, it was dimensions of customer experience and theme parks. Now, when people write their research, sometimes they use interchangeably different type of words, right? Theme parks are also called as entertainment parks. Yes. Similarly, customer experience can also be called as consumer experience. So you fill this up and then you start searching your stuff. So remember, when you search databases, searching and smart searching is different. So when you simply go and write customer experience, let's say in Scopus, you're going to get around 47,000 results. You cannot read 47,000 things, right? So then you go to another option, which is called advanced search, right? So in advanced search, normally they use Boolean operators, and, or, not, right? In this case, we are using and, or. So once you identify this, and if you search it based on this, you are going to end up with 120 something papers. Much easier, right? 120 papers compared to 47,000, and much more focused. Yes? So this is what we call as smart searching. Now, one more slide, please, Siddhan. Usually it looks like this. Okay, so when you are doing your literature map, sometimes it's a hierarchical pattern, which is here, right? So you hierarchy, you put your main topic into 2 or 3 subtopics, and then you go further into subtopics and stuff like this. Usually this type of thing can do very well if you are writing your thesis and dissertation. Because for thesis dissertation, many of you have to write 200, 300 pages, sometimes 50,000 words, right? So you need to pick up all the literature around it. So this type of thing can help you. Okay, one more slide, please, Siddhan. Now, this is another thing I use in my literature review called annotated bibliography, right? So usually what happens, usually annotation is where you make notes onto your paper. Right, so you download a paper, you print it out, and then you make notes on it. But we are in electronic world, so you cannot do that. And even though if you do it, how many papers can you annotate? 100, 200, 300. But at the end of 300, how are you going to find what did you do? It's a bunch of papers, right? So I use an Excel template. This is how I do it, right? So you see number, citation, keyword, blah, blah. Citation is simply the paper I read, I put the whole citation there. Then the keywords I put there, and this helps me to search the papers later on. So if I want to search something in database, I simply go to Control F, put the keyword, I find it. Now, summary here is not the abstract of the paper. Okay, don't go copy paste the paper and put the abstract there. Read the paper, see what you think of that paper, right? And read your write your own understanding of that paper. You write it there, then you put the authority. Now, authority is important. Why authority is important is because you need to know the paper you are citing, who is the author. So let's say if you want to work on augmented reality or virtual reality, and you saw Professor Carlos Flavian, right? So his paper that he was saying he published in 2018 is now amongst the top 10 marketing articles, meaning that's a very good article to cite if you want to talk about XR or MR or AR or stuff like this. So I would normally put something like this. See, Pine and Gilmore were the first scholars to propose the idea of experience economy. Because usually when you provide definitions, or if you really want to make an argument, you need to bring leading scholars into the mix, right, into a literature review. And then I put a comment here, which says this is the conceptual base for my study. So I can use this model as a conceptual base. So if you are reviewing, let's say 100 papers for your literature review, it's very easy to then find which paper did you read and where can you use it into your paper. Very easy to find it out, right? So you can do something like this. One more slide, please, Siddhan. Maybe I'll just skip this one. One more slide. Okay, this is another way of organizing your literature review. So again, we are talking about, because most of us review a lot of papers for our literature, right? So how can you organize it in a better way? So usually what I do is this one. This is a template normally for systematic literature review, but what you can do is just fill up these things. Okay, so you read a paper and you fill up this one. Let's say title of the paper, what is the research problem, which findings did they pick up, like what variables and stuff like this, what were the theories they used, blah, blah. One more slide, Siddhan. So let's say I read this paper, Tan Why Impact of Risk and Competition on Bank Profitability in China. I fill up that template based on the findings from this study, right? So I fill it up. But then I also read maybe 10 more papers. So now I have 10 of these, right? So what do I do with them? I compile them in one. Siddhan, one more slide, please. It become like this, right? So now I have authors there, then I have main theories that I use, then I have what type of methodologies they have used, what are the summary of those findings, and what is suggestion for future research. So now you can see you can use a better version of this into your literature review, because when we are writing our literature review, let's say Professor Jihan's journal accepts 6,000 words in total, right? So 6,000 words mean you need to provide a lot of literature in probably 2,000 words. right? Because you don't have a lot of space. So something like this can help you because you're going to put everything together. It's a more comprehensive way of doing it. Now, in all this, remember that you need to put your own narrative in all this, which I'll talk about very soon. Siddhan, one more slide, please. Okay, so usually when you critically evaluate your literature, right, you downloaded a paper or something, these are the 4 ways of doing it, okay? So one is preview. Previewing is simply to recall prior knowledge of a reader. So basically, you look at a paper, you say, okay, this is good, right? You quickly preview it and you keep it for reading later on. This is how you interact with that paper. Second one is annotating, which normally I do, right? Annotating, I gave you an example of electronic annotating, but I'm a big fan of, hard copy annotating. It's not possible sometimes, it's difficult, but usually I do it, especially if I'm reviewing a paper for a journal. I usually print it out, I annotate it, it's easier to understand. So annotating is where you take notes on a paper, you put your own comments in it and then to your understanding. The third one is summarizing. This is very important for writing the literature review, where you summarize somebody else's work in your words, right? So I normally tell my students, think about it like this. Let's say you are talking to some people, not researchers, just common people, something that you are really excited about and you tell them something. Usually when we talk, and if somebody do not believe you, right? Somebody says, no, I don't believe you. You usually quote an authority, okay? For example, for Muslims, what they do, if you tell them, if a Muslim is talking with somebody else, to make it more believable, they say, Quran says it, right? Or the Prophet says it. This is normally conversation we do like this. Your literature needs to be like this. It's your narrative. You need to talk about that variable, but use the references to support your arguments. That's it. You don't say you don't put quotations from one paper and then put the reference, then quotations, then it's not like this. It's your narrative, it's your story. You just need to add references into your story to support the arguments. One more slide, please, Siddhan. Now, this is the most important thing, okay? You can see here, one way is, and this is basic, okay? So if somebody says a study by Smith 1998 showed that gender differences existed online. Usually people do this, but they miss how and why. Very important. So when you are writing your literature, you need to give more context to what you are talking about. So the second one you see, it says Smith 1998 investigated, blah, blah, blah. You read all of it. It brings more context into whatever you're talking about. Makes your literature review much more engaging. Okay, it's very important. One more slide, Siddhan, please. Okay, and here, obviously it's late, but maybe if you look at this one, very interesting. Several studies have tried to determine the link between stress and job satisfaction. Job satisfaction and job stress are two hot focuses in human resource approaches, blah, 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 right? So you can see this study reveals that, shows that high level job stress predictive. Can you go one slide more, Siddhan? And then now you read this one. So you will get an idea of what I'm talking about. So if you look at this one, you will see it's more of a narrative of the author, but they're using references to support their argument. Usually this is how you need to work with your literature review. Okay, Siddhan, one more slide, please. Now, these are some very important strategies, okay? When you are working on your literature, when you are going through all these different type of activities, remember this one. Our brain can see images that last for just 13 milliseconds. If something comes in front of you for 13 milliseconds, your brain can process that image, okay? Then our eyes can register 36,000 visual messages per hour because we see them, right? A lot of things. We can get the sense of a visual scene, blah, 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 right? A lot of things. What I'm trying to tell you here, it's nothing to do with literature review. What I'm trying to make an argument is that visually, if you see things, it's much easier to process them, okay? So what I do for my stuff, and the next slide has a few pictures. These are real pictures from my room during my PhD days. Siddhan, one more slide, please. Here. So this is what I used to do for my literature review, and it worked for me very well. So if you look at this picture down below, it's a bit difficult because this is from 2012. It's very old. The cameras were not so good on the phones. I would download the models from different studies, and then I would paste them onto a wall to see all of them together to get a sense of what's going on about one topic, right? That's strategy number one I used to do. This one here is my table of content. So before I even started writing my dissertation or anything, I put the entire table of content on a board in front of me on a whiteboard to see, to process it, like what am I going to study, what I'm going to read and stuff like that. Later, I started beefing it up, adding more stuff into this table of content, like the content. But the table I made first, which worked for me. I don't know if it was going to work for all of you or not, but this is a strategy I used to do. And then the third one right there on the top is sticky notes. I usually use sticky notes a lot. But if you look at those sticky notes, this is exactly what I told you to do in Excel. So the top pink ones are chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and chapter 5. Okay, and then the blue ones are the first one was the problem statement. The second one was justification. Then for literature review, those are subheadings. Then for methodology, it's again the choice of method and justification. Analysis and conclusion is conclusion. Theoretical implications, practical and limitations, like this. And what is written on them are the papers. So if I read a paper, I feel it's interesting, very important, I take a note on sticky note, stick it to my wall. But this is 2012, right? So I mean, if you can do it electronically, it's very good. Like most of the computers have sticky note program or whatever. But putting it on the wall is the benefit is you see it all the time, right? So you don't get lazy, you see it, then you start working on it and stuff like this. So I do this one all the time. It has benefited me quite a lot. Siddhan, next slide, please. Yeah, I'm done. So one thing is, if a detailed version of this presentation and several other things, I have them on my YouTube channel. There's several videos, you can watch them there. And Siddhan, now can you bring that link? Okay, now this in the end, I'm telling you this because it's the latest thing I did on literature review. We did a paper, it's about literature review in Service Industries Journal, just published. I think if you look at it, 15th March, right? So advancing knowledge through literature reviews, what, why, and how to contribute. Thank you so much, Professor Levin. He worked. Sorry? No, less than 10 days. Actually 11 days. Yes, the very first time we posted it was not accepted. It was accepted, but not published. So we put out the pre-published proof of the paper, but it was because of the copyright issues, right? Now, the good thing is that that's why I was saying thank you, that he made it open access. So all of you having access to Service Industries Journal or not having access, you can download the paper for free. It's available. I already see the numbers are very good. I actually see the papers that are online first, all the papers that are online first. This is the highest number of downloads in this paper already. And before it went open access, we already sent it to more than a couple of hundred people on ResearchGate who asked us to send them a copy of it. The paper itself is very detailed, very good. I actually sent a copy of this paper to a few people in this room before it was even open access and asked them, what do you think about this paper? Goes there, I sent it to you as well and Live also. And they all said it's a very detailed paper which explains literature review in a lot of fun way. The special thing is we don't talk about this about literature review chapter 2 only. It talks about how you can use literature review to make a contributing paper. So you can actually use literature review to publish something, just the literature review. I would highly recommend look at the paper. It's open access. You will really like it and love it, just like all those people who downloaded it. And we expect this paper to really do wonderful job for younger researchers. Okay, let's finish, and 5 minutes we have. So if there's any questions, I can take the questions. Thank you. Yesterday, Siddhan told me, I've never seen you finish your slides in one talk, right? Today I did, but I skipped a lot of them. It's okay. Okay, any questions? Yes, yes.
Recently we read papers, academic papers, of course I'm talking about. So we see the literature review, but we see that the introduction is quite long as well. It's like kind of, I don't know, a mini literature review as well. What do you think is the reason? And do you think it is a kind of indispensable part of our academic paper?
Yeah, obviously, you know, maybe editors can answer this better because every journal has its own requirements of format and stuff, right? In my opinion, I think introduction shouldn't have too much of literature review. Introduction simply is to set up the stage. Why are you doing this study? What's important about it? Why is there a need for this study? That's all you need in introduction, right? Usually in my papers, when I write my papers, I only have 4 paragraphs. My first paragraph always is about the context of the study. So if I'm conducting it in a particular context, if it's a case, if it's about, let's say, a social issue or whatever, the first paragraph always talks about numbers, statistics about that issue to highlight why is it important to study that issue. Then in the second paragraph, I normally talk about my established facts, meaning something about that issue that we all know. In the third paragraph, I talk about contradicting facts, meaning something that people recently started saying contradictory to the established facts, right? Which creates the gap, the problem. And then the fourth paragraph normally talks about my aim and objectives and structure of the paper and stuff like this. It has done okay for me, but you know, in what you said, I am frustrated with that also. The papers I review, probably Levent Hujam see my reviews on his journal. I say exactly the same. Why you are putting so many things in introduction that doesn't make any sense, right? So yes, I agree to you. I think introduction should be introduction, literature should be literature. Yes.
I just wonder, because sometimes like we young academics, we try to write papers like 2-3 people, and we start with the literature review, of course. And I don't know, in your case, in your experience, when you write like with your colleagues, do you separate the sections in the literature review, or you write everything and then others revise it? Because
No.
there's another problem. If it's written by 3 different people, there should be integrity, right? You should ensure the integrity, because you said about like narratives, and all the narratives that you do and the others do can be different, right?
Yes.
So how do you make it? Sure
Okay, so for your first question, I always have subheadings because I normally am a visual person. I need to see things. I need to see the sequence to make sense of it, right? Like I showed you just now, the picture of the table of content. I usually do this in my papers also. Always there is subheadings and everything very easy to understand. For your second question, yes, most of us now work with teams, right? So if there's 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, of course, there's style of writing is different and everything. But I've never worked with people where one person work on one variable for literature review, other person work on the other. I don't do that. Usually when I work with people, one person take care of literature review, one person take care of methodology, one person take care of another thing. And then if we have a senior academic in the team, then that senior academic look at the overall thing to make the flow better, right? So usually that's how I work with my stuff. One last question we can take, Saddam.
So what is the point that we stop the literature review?
What is the point for?
That we stop the literature review, because sometimes I feel it's never enough literature. You know what I mean? Then which point?
Okay.
Yeah. Which point we should
Okay.
stop and keep going, the
Okay.
other parts?
Perfect. So good question, very good question. Sometimes I tell people don't overkill during the planning process, okay? It's like this, you read too many things without starting your work. You keep reading, and you never start your work. Read 10, 12, 20 papers, start your work, and then read more along the way, okay? First, do like this. Second is, for your introduction, like I just mentioned, you need some literature for establishing facts, for contradicting facts, and establishing the context, right? You don't need more than that. In your proper literature review, the way I do it, for each variable, normally I include references for 2 types of things. One is operational definitions, meaning whatever variable I'm studying, conceptual definitions, meaning how people have defined this variable, right? What type of concept is behind this variable? And then the second set of references is how people have measured it. Is it a unidimensional? Is it a multidimensional? What type of dimensions people have studied? Just this for each variable. And then for hypothesis development, normally your references should focus on the linkage of variables, not the variables. This is another problem I see. Many people write literature review in hypothesis development, which doesn't make sense. Hypothesis development needs to focus on the hypothesis, not the variable, right? So this is normally what you, if you put this in your mind, then obviously you will know when to stop. When all these things are done, you stop. Okay, all right, thank you.
So thank you, Faizan. Before I hand over to Faizan's certificate, I would like to say a few things about this session and Faizan in particular, right? Now, you have seen, we have tried to put together a content-rich conference together, sessions one after another, different colleagues, academics presenting their ideas, views, and so on. For me, or to me, this was one of the most important sessions, I can tell you. The reason being is that this session was designed or planned in such a way, or it is geared towards what I would call research capacity development, research skill development, right? If you compare the other sessions, we thought the ones you have seen so far, or you will see this afternoon, the emphasis has been very much on the output, the outcomes. It's what's the final target, whereas this one is how to get there. Yes, so it's about research capacity development. Now, Faizan is a well-published researcher. You know Faizan very well. What I like about Faizan is that is a characteristic that not everyone possesses, and we got to learn a lot from that. We can learn a lot from Faizan about research or how to do research, but there is one thing that you would need to possess as well that Faizan has been carrying. That is modesty, right? Faizan has achieved a lot, but he never says, I am done, right? And the way he goes around online and as well as internationally, his vision has always been how can I help other researchers, young researchers in different parts of the world. And here, listen to this one, this is what even more important. As a researcher, we have got, just like our organizations do, we have got social responsibility. And we have got responsibility towards those emerging countries, developing part of the world where people have been trying to catch up with the more developed world, right? And it has been the mission and the vision of Faizan for many years to help the researchers in that part of the world to catch up with the research activities that is going on in other parts of the world as well. So big congratulations. Thank you very much. This is a collective effort. We have got a lot to learn from each other. So come on board, help us so that we can achieve this collectively, not as individuals. So thank you so much.